Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're watching this. This is episode 22 of the Rosinbaggers podcast. With me, I've got a full house. Stove, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. Happy to be back again. You guys have done a fucking fantastic job holding it down while I've been gone. So appreciate it. Kudos to you guys. You guys are amazing. Just happy to be back and participating and give my 2 cents and shit on the cards whenever I can.
Hey, we're happy to have you back, bud. Cubs, Cards, love being a third party in this, but also a fan of a shitty team, so I can just talk shit about everybody. Ty, how you doing, man?
Doing well, as mentioned by Pops right at the very start of the broadcast. Cards are up 2-1 as they're taking on the Colorado Rockies. Very intriguing race that has developed in the National League Central with the Cardinals and Brewers. This baby, by all indications, is going to go down to the very last week, I have a feeling, with the Cardinals and Brewers. So certainly from the Cardinals fan perspective, very interested. I will say I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer, though. I broke the number one rule of baseball. You don't bet on baseball, but I thought to myself this morning, I said, there's no way in hell that
Pete Rose over here. Let's go.
who, by the way, should be in the hall. Another topic for another time.
Yes,
Cleveland, Detroit. I had Zach Plezek put in a parlay yesterday with the Cleveland Guardians. I said there's no way Detroit takes 3 of 4 from them, so let's double down because we lost yesterday. And lo and behold, we're sitting in the bottom of the 6th, and it looks like a nightmare for my bank account right now.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Whoa,
sir.
whoa.
For the record, I have the Guardians as well. However, Red Sox and Yankees, huh?
I was just looking at that. Like, I thought that's like a cardinal sin.
Right. That's like rooting for the North and the South.
Yeah, that's a ballsy move there, bud.
Bold move.
Bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, let's jump right in here and let's look at our reviews from last week. So, I had the Pods, I had the Nats. I'm gonna save that for a little bit because the Padres are a little bit of a hot topic right now, not because of why I highlighted this, but for other reasons. So, Ty, I'm gonna pass it your way first. Field the Dreams game. Talk to me about it, buddy.
Well, looking forward to discussing this one, especially discussing this game with a Cubs fan, because as I mentioned in my series preview last week, I was really looking forward to this being an opportunity for both fan bases of two struggling baseball teams right now to get at least some sort of momentum and some sort of happiness that this season was able to provide. And certainly the backdrop of the Field of Dreams, was able to provide that for this game. It lacked, in my opinion, the drama of last year's version with the Yankees and White Sox. That game was arguably one of the best games of the entire season a year ago. And in baseball, you're going to get those opportunities. But credit to the Chicago Cubs, Stove's team. Drew Smyly goes 5 scoreless innings. The Cubs have a 10-hit attack. Nick Madrigal played like he was in the fountain of youth over in Iowa as he was able to pick up 3 hits. He also had 2 steals. Cubs win the Field of Dreams game by the score of 4-2. Like I said, it lacked the drama of the original installment. We're going to see that as this moves forward. But you loved Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. coming out and playing a game of catch. You loved what the players all had to say about the experience. And it's about the experience when you're playing in that town of 4,400 people over in Iowa. And the thing that grabbed me was what we were talking about at the end of the last pod was, should this be kind of the OGs, the original baseball teams that get to participate in this, or should baseball, as this progresses and moves along, be opened up and hopefully get an opportunity where all 30 franchises have an opportunity to play in this game? And the emphatic answer that I heard from both sides was absolutely. That it's something that every baseball player needs to experience in their career. And we were hearing the same sentiment in the very early stages of the NHL's version of the Winter Classic, the outdoor spectacle that is that every player needs to get a chance to experience that. So that was exciting to hear how much love of the game is put into place. You have two struggling teams here with the Cubs and the Reds, but we were able to sit back and put all of that aside for one night to be able to watch these teams take place, and it was a fun watch. It's always a great watch when they're playing in an environment that you remember from your childhood, like the Field of Dreams movie provides, I think, for all of us that are baseball fans, and certainly was a good watch. Now, that said, the series moves along. Saturday, Cubs 3 home runs do the trick as the Cubs beat the struggling Reds at this point 7-2. That was the 5th straight loss for Cincinnati. Sunday, Wild One saw the Reds pick up a key tie-breaking RBI single off the bat of Jose Barrero for an 8-5 victory. That stops the 5-game losing streak. They were able to at least salvage one from the Chicago Cubs. But I want to turn it really quick to our resident Cubs fan here,
sir.
Because I want to get your opinion on it. As mentioned, season's been a little bit of a struggle for Chicago. You're still in the rebuilding phase, if you will. Rebuild mode fully activated over there in Chicago. But did the win last week, did that have added emphasis? Did that have added value for what's probably been, I'm guessing, a pretty miserable season?
Hi. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And, I like how you get some key jabs in there as miserable and rebuild, So I'll take it. I'll take it. And you also mentioned earlier in your comment, a fountain of youth with Nick Madrigal.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that. And as we all know as baseball fans and watching the movie Field of Dreams, they're old guys, they're old players, they're has-beens, They walk through that cornfield, they step on that field, all of a sudden, baby, they're young, they're full of youth, they're energized, and that's exactly what happened to the Chicago Cubs and Nick Madrigal in this game. And it was a thing of beauty. Smiley, the 10 hits, that Wilson Contreras, that heart and soul of that team, it propelled them into the weekend. As you mentioned, they obviously lost. They lost a heartbreaker Sunday. But man, as a baseball fan, and it doesn't matter if you're a Cubs fan or a Reds fan for this game. This game could have had the freaking Florida Marlins and the freaking whoever, the Guardians or whoever the other shitty teams are, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay. And it would have been one of those games that was still magical. Okay. There would have been some magic in that game. And I don't know if it's the baseball gods shining down on that field, but baseball needs to keep that going. I've heard reports that they're not going to do it next year. Manfred, for as much shit as we have given you and for as much hate that the players have for you, you need to keep the Field of Dreams game going. And I say that as a baseball fan and as a dad and as a son. That is what that game is about. It's about the fans, as every game is. But that game itself is more so about the fans and the mystique and the history with the movie with Kevin Costner and Shoeless Joe and everything. It's the dads playing catch. And I loved the Griffey Jr., Griffey Sr. I know you guys as well as me. We would love that opportunity to go play catch with our dads again, And as a dad, Gary, I know you're a dad. You would love that opportunity to play catch with your kids there.
Absolutely.
And so as a Cubs fan, yes, it propelled them. It was magical. I think it gave them a little boost in their rebuild for the season. I think, going forward, Ty, Cubs and Cardinals start a series on Monday, bud. Better watch out. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, absolutely. Love the game. Unfortunately, I did not get to see it live. I saw highlights of it. I read about it. But the pomp and circumstance that goes with that game, obviously, as a baseball fan, love it. And it needs to stay.
I'm with you, Stove. The report that you're alluding to is that there's going to be some renovations in that particular complex at the Field of Dreams location. The latest report is that in all likelihood, 2023's version of the Field of Dreams game will be will not happen, and it will resume again in 2024. I think I can speak for all of baseball fans, and I think I can speak for all of us here on this podcast. If renovations are simply what's holding us back and we are 365 days away, give us all 3 damn shovels and let's go to work and let's get this renovation done, because I do not want to see, and it's similar with really everyday life. It's similar with this podcast. It's similar when you have something good, you really need to cash in on it, and consistency is the key. And my fear here is you take a year away of that, you take a year off, and suddenly the momentum that you've gained from the neutrals, the fans that typically don't watch a baseball game, all flock to go watch the Field of Dreams game because it is so special, and you lose that momentum with your fan base if you do take a year off. So I'm with you guys. I do not want to see it postponed for 2023. I hope those reports are frivolous at this point. I hope they can figure out some way to make those renovations happen within the next 365 days. I know weather, obviously, in the Midwest is a concern. You just can't do a whole lot of construction with 10 feet of snow on the ground, and that's what happens a lot of time in the winter here in the Midwest. But let's get some shovels, let's get some Bobcats out there, and let's all drive them down to Iowa to make sure that the 2023 version continues.
Major League Baseball's got the resources. Just make it happen. Like Stove said, Manfred, make it fucking happen, man. This game should be a yearly thing, and I have the same concern. If we lose it next year, is there going to be the same fervor if and when they bring it back in 2024? Are they gonna not bring it back because maybe they just look at it and say, well, we didn't lose anything? I sincerely hope they figure out how to get the renovations done, have the game next year. And if there's no chance of having the game next year, they better push the marketing button very, very hard for 2024 and make sure that game gets all of the pomp and circumstance that it deserves. We talked last week about Hinchcliffe getting a game eventually, the rumors there, that'd be fucking phenomenal. And then obviously the game in Williamsport, the Little League World Series is going on right now, and that game up there is really cool. The Little Leaguers get to interact with Major Leaguers. The Field of Dreams game, we got to hold on to that. And I hope that Major League Baseball not only preserves, the Field of Dreams game, but after Hinchcliffe, what's next, right? Where else can we play a game that's going to be, one of those traditional, historical, can we recreate the Polo Grounds or something like that, right? Just one of these historical kind of, coliseums that baseball is associated with. So I do hope that not only do they preserve the Field of Dreams game, but they, obviously let's continue to understand and embrace the history of baseball.
Absolutely.
All right. So as I mentioned and alluded to, I was looking at Padres Nats, right? So I was looking forward to Soto coming back to Washington, and it was sort of the reception I hoped that Washington gave him. It was a warm embrace. It was a warm reception from the fans. Some fan bases can be very irrational, and the DC fan base is not an exception to that rule, right? The word fanatic has its own connotation to begin with, but they treated Soto well on the return. And the Padres took 2 of 3. The only surprise in that is that they didn't take 3 of 3, to be honest. They outscored the Nats 19-9 in the series. Sort of what I expected. Nats take the middle game 4-3 and kind of sneak one in on the Padres, who have in reality they've kind of scuffled since the big trade. They got kind of beat down by Big Brother in LA, and then they lose one here to the Nats, and they've lost a couple since, and they're losing games that I don't necessarily think they should be losing. So looking at this series, though, kind of putting the lens over the series, this is, to me, a microcosm of the Nats and what could have been, right? I look at what the Padres are doing right now, and they're all in. Tatis aside, we're going to talk about him in a moment, but the Nats have had so many superstars on that team in the last handful of years. They got one World Series out of it, but then you let Anthony Rendon walk. You let Bryce Harper walk before him before the World Series. Steven Strasburg's the guy you invest money in, and nobody trusts him to stay on the field to begin with. Now he's not playing, and he's just cashing a paycheck. You let Max Scherzer out the door. You let Trey Turner out the door. All of these superstars have walked out the door. And, oh, by the way, you just let probably the best hitter in baseball at the age of 24 out the door. It's a sad state of affairs in Washington, and I look across the diamond in this series and the Dodgers, who are on TV almost every night, what they're doing, preserving and keeping and retaining their superstars. The Washington, D.C. metropolitan area is bigger than San Diego, and it's not that much smaller than Los Angeles. So what the fuck are we doing here with the learners? And I look at what's going on, like I said, across the diamond with the Padres, and it's just like, this is what could have been. We had superstars like this. One of them that's in San Diego right now was just in our dugout. It's frustrating as a Nationals fan. I hold on to that World Series win. It's great. It was fun. It was a hell of a ride. COVID kind of took the celebration away from us, but we got a World Series out of it. We just keep letting these fucking superstars walk out the door. This roster could be fucking loaded, and it's not. It's not.
No, it's not. Sorry, bud.
I know Stove's going to talk about it.
It's been the World Series not too long ago. I feel for you, but yeah, you guys could have been like the next big thing, next big, franchise.
We could have been the '90s Yankees, man.
Yeah, you guys had some dudes.
Yeah.
Keyword had.
Yeah. Ty, you were saying?
I was just going to say, I know Stove's going to highlight it a hell of a lot more on his State of the Union coming up, but were you surprised? I was a little surprised at how well the Padres were able to overcome a little adversity, a little controversy, and certainly a whole lot of turmoil in that dugout with the news that came down at the end of last weekend in Tatis.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that we haven't really seen any sort of fallout. It's crazy that it just seems like they're sort of business as usual. It is what it is, I guess, is kind of the approach they're taking. It is surprising they've been able to just focus on baseball, and that's big news. That's crushing news. Your superstar, your MVP candidate is not going to be joining the team this year, and he's going to miss part of next year. But yeah, not to spoil too much of what Stowe's going to talk about here in a minute, but all right, let's look at series preview. So looking ahead to next week's schedule, we'll start with you, Big Stove. Houston and Atlanta. This is a tale of two teams that are playing really good baseball. One's in first place, one's in second place.
Yep.
Talk to me about this series, man.
So obviously we all hate the Astros.
Yep.
We just want the Astros to lose. And what better team than the Atlanta Braves, who are on a roll. And when I say roll, they're on a roll, baby. And if you look at the history of the Braves going back to last year after the All-Star break is kind of when they started hitting their stride and started winning some ball games. And what have they done? They've won 5 straight here. And
they've turned up the propane.
Yeah, they've turned it up. Riley is just killing the ball. So, yeah, man, let's go. Don't know who's pitching yet for the Braves on Friday night. But let me see here. Just a second. I have my notes here on this one. Let's see. Yeah. So Lance McCullers is pitching for the Astros and undecided for the Braves as of right now. So that'll be a good one. I don't care who the Braves throw out there; they're going to win. And then the next day, you can't go wrong with going with the Braves on this one because when a dude has a stash like Spencer Strider does, you gotta go with the stash. It doesn't matter who you are. Go with the stash.
We fully embrace the mustache here.
Fully embrace
on the Rosinbaggers podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Kudos to Ty for rocking it for pretty much the entire baseball season. So Ty, kudos to you for that.
They're coming back, baby.
Yep, they are. They are. And I think baseball has really took hold of that. And I think we're starting to see a new generation of stashes come about like we saw in the 80s and early 90s. So yeah, excited for this matchup on Saturday, but Strider, can't go wrong with Strider on this one. And then Sunday, Charlie Morton versus Jose Urquidy, however you pronounce his name.
Urquidy?
Yeah.
That's a toughie.
That one is a toughie. If you look at the records of both guys, Urquidy, he's lost 4 games, but his ERA is up there close to 4. But Charlie Morton's ERA is over 4. So I think after everything's said and done, obviously it comes down to pitching, but also Houston's kind of hurting though too. With injuries and everything else like that. All 3 games are in Atlanta. Got to love the home base there. Go with the home crowd. And obviously, I think if every Atlanta fan and the fans that are going to the game in this 3-game series goes to our website, backyardsportsmedia.shop, and buys a Bang the Foul Pole, not trash can shirt, I think that would just be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to see them in the stands for sure. Yeah, the trash cans, just let's rub it in. The Astros should never live that down. I don't care if it's 2050 and Jose Altuve's fucking grandson is a prospect in the farm system. The Astros should still be getting shit for the trash cans.
Speaking of the Atlanta Braves, boys, our boy Jeff Passan tweeted out last night the ridiculous players, the amount of players that they have locked up for a long time.
30, right?
Austin Riley through 2032. Yeah. Matt Olson through 2030. They re-signed Michael Harris yesterday through 2030. Acuna, he's going to stick around till 2028. They got Grissom till 2028. Ozzy Albies till 27. Stash Man himself, Strider, till 2027. William Contreras, who is going to be the next great catcher. You heard it here on the Rosinbaggers pod. Yeah, I truly believe he replaces who I would have thought was the next up-and-comer when Adley Rutschman. I think Contreras is a step better than Adley. Kyle Wright through 2026 and Max Fried through 2024. Atlanta is going to be good for a while.
Fun fact about Mr. William Contreras, he leads the league in catchers with barrels per at-bat. At 10% of his at-bats, he puts the barrel on the baseball. Good contact on the baseball, 10% of his at-bats, and that leads the league for catchers.
Great player.
Good investment.
Good investment.
That's a team, though. So we've talked a lot, right, about the CBA and teams always wanting to play this team control over players, et cetera, right? And I love what the Braves are doing because we don't often see teams do this where they are locking their own up early. I mean, Michael Harris is playing like his 25th game in the league, and he's got a contract through 2030. I mean, it's absurd to think. And then Austin Riley, they didn't go to arbitration with him. I think Grissom's a rookie this year or a second-year guy, depending on how many games of service. And Strider's a rookie. They are locking guys up with contracts, like legitimate, lucrative contracts for several years. We don't see teams do this. Teams love to play this up-down stove. You saw it with Chris Bryant, right? And, we've seen it with a ton of players, up, down, make sure they don't play too many games this year so we get one more year of control. I love that the Braves are just saying, you know what, caution to the wind. We've got a great core. Let's keep this thing together for 6-7 years and see if we can't go on a dynastic run. I just mentioned the 90s Yankees, right? We won a World Series last year. Let's keep a good thing going. Lock these guys up. Let's do it.
Does it not remind you of the early 90s Braves?
Absolutely.
You think of all of those World Series and all of the, oh my God, how many NL East pennants did they win in a row? But
13,
you take a look at the core of that roster. And I remember because we had two options growing up here in Central Nebraska for baseball. Yeah. You had the Chicago Cubs on WGN and you had the Atlanta Braves on TBS. So I remember because I'm a Cardinals fan, to hell with the WGN and Harry Carey and Cubs. We were watching Turner Broadcasting and Atlanta Braves. But what I remember most was that roster didn't deviate. That roster didn't change a whole hell of a lot from great year to great year to great year. There was the names like Gary Sheffield and Terry Pendleton and David Justice and Javi Lopez and they all stayed. The pitching staff stayed. This reminds me of what the Braves did in the 90s when they went on their, as you mentioned, dynastic run. And I think they could be due for another one.
Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree with you guys here. And I honestly don't know like what made me think about it today as I was driving home. And it might've been Passon's tweet yesterday, but I was just thinking to myself about the Braves and how they locked up these guys for years. And it made me go back to Gary, what you said to, last year and 2 years ago with the Cubs and all the arbitration with those key players that the Cubs drafted. And it says a lot about a franchise when they're throwing away that extra year of service and signing their core guys to lucrative long-term contracts. That goes a long way. That shows loyalty to that player. It shows loyalty to the fan base who essentially
that might be the most important thing, right? The fan base. Because you're telling the fans you can go buy Michael Harris's jersey. You can go buy Ronald Acuna's, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. They're here to stay.
Exactly.
Because they just watched Freddie Freeman walk out the door, Mr. Brave.
Yeah.
But here's something you can invest in. We are investing in this team so that you can invest in us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, when that time comes, when those contracts are up, you can go back to this point and be like, look, okay, we paid you lucratively for X amount of years. We can't pay you this, but we can pay you this. And in the back of that's going to sit in the back of those players' minds when it comes time to make that decision. Like, this fan base, this team has been loyal to me throughout all these years. Let me be loyal to them back and sign at maybe a lesser contract so they can go get
two or three other guys, right?
I mean, I love it. I love the way the Braves are doing this. I really do.
Yeah, that negotiating in good faith because these players are making money before their schedule.
Yeah.
Right. Baseball has a quote unquote unwritten, unspoken schedule for how guys make money in the league. It's a couple years of service, then you go to arbitration, then you get your first free agent or your first long-term deal. And you're talking 5-6 years into your career. These guys are getting it early. Sorry, Taj, I kind of stepped on you there.
You're good.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say with you mentioned the Freeman news, and I just thought of this on the spot, but how much of that and the way that Freeman deal went down, do you think predicated this Braves organization and management staff to say, we've got the dudes,
we can't do that again.
We are never doing that again.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a perfect take by you, that it has to have been in their mind that all of the fallout from the Freddie Freeman news and how emotional he was in that series when kind of that news broke that the agent really kind of screwed him. The Braves didn't want to run into that again. Yeah, for sure. I think that absolutely had to be on their minds. All right. Let's look at sorry, Stove. Ty? Subway Series?
Yo. Frank Sinatra, New York, all of the glitz, all of the glamour, and all of a sudden, the New York Yankees are nowhere to be found when it comes to winning baseball games. They're, at last checked, losing again to the Tampa Bay Rays. That would be a fourth straight loss for them and would make them approximately 1-9 over the course of their last 10 games. Even worse record when you expand it a little bit. And of all things, weird voodoo baseball god shit that can happen to a baseball team, it was trading a player that was absolutely anchoring the team that might have sank the ship. Joey Gallo goes over to the LA Dodgers, and all of a sudden the Yankees go in a tailspin that nobody can explain.
Gallo has more hits in his 9 games with the Dodgers than he had in his last 30 with the Yankees.
Couldn't happen to a better baseball team, right? The New York Yankees, the Pinstripes, who 3 weeks ago we were talking about, and I might have even inadvertently blurted out that they were going to break the MLB record for most wins in a season. Now they can't find their way out of a plastic bag right now. It is a sad state of affairs for the New York Yankees. But lo and behold, they get an opportunity against their rivals starting next week on Monday to right the ship, so to speak. And they've got to play some winning baseball in a hurry because right now it looks like a car that's just stuck in neutral, that it's not going anywhere. And of course, anytime that you're talking about the Subway Series, it's a big series, but it's one of those rare instances. And when we highlighted it the last time these two teams came around, this has all of the buzz in New York right now, in the Bronx, because it's two teams that are sitting in first place. You got the NL East leaders, the American League East leaders, thanks to the separation that the Yankees were able to get out in the early part of the season. I'm just really looking forward to seeing, can the Yankees get back on track? Can they get back to winning baseball? Because like we've talked about with the New York Mets, this is a stellar pitching rotation that the Mets have in store for them. And at the early part of the season, even 3 weeks ago, we were talking about how good the Yankees rotation is. That rotation has hit a speed bump and really thrown the alignment off this winning trajectory that the New York Yankees have had. So let's just take a gander at some of the pitching matchups. Of course, you got Yerman going up against Mad Max Scherzer on Monday. That should be a fantastic watch. MLB Network will have the coverage. And then, lo and behold, we're going to go to Amazon for reasons unknown, because MLB likes to stream their games and try to pick up as much audience as possible. But you have the most eyes possible on a baseball game, and you throw it on a streaming service. I don't get it. But you got Montez going up against Jacob deGrom. So the Mets have come forth. They're throwing their 1 and their 2. They're going to have to go through the heart of this Mets rotation and this Yankees offense, who even Aaron Judge has started to cool off a little bit from where he was lava hot. I mean, Aaron Judge is still hitting the baseball pretty damn well, but he's not hitting a home run every 3 at bats, it seems, at this point for the New York Yankees. I'm just curious to see, can the Yankees offense get back on track? Because, like we said, Scherzer and deGrom, they're probably the 2 best pitchers in the game right now. And oh, by the way, they play for the exact same team. So the Yankees are certainly in for an uphill battle. Very curious to see how this series plays out. And it's got the rivalry factor. It's got all of the hoopla because the Braves continue to reel in ever so slowly. Stove just got done talking about them. The Braves have a big series. If the Braves can take some games from the Astros, close in on the New York Mets, then the Mets are going to be looking to get separation. And oh, by the way, it's against their rivals. So this has all sorts of drama written on it. Get out the popcorn. It's going to be a fantastic watch. Yankees, Mets, starting at the beginning of next week, and it will lead us fresh into another Rosinbaggers pod.
Yeah, last week on the pod, I mentioned the fact that the Yankees had a worse record than every team in the league except the Nationals from August 1st until last Wednesday. You know what has changed from last Wednesday to tonight? The Nats have a better record than the Yankees in the month of August. So the Yankees, who are on their way to going to 3-12 in the month of August, now have the worst record in baseball in the month of August. And, oh, by the way, the Washington Nationals still play baseball in the major leagues.
And so do the Oakland A's.
And the A's and the Royals, who have been struggling.
Oh, my God.
The New York Yankees have the worst record in August, and we are more than halfway through the month.
And there's still 9 games in front.
There's still 9 games in front. That is fair.
Oh, good stuff. Subway
Anyway.
Series, book it. It's going to be good stuff.
Book it. All right. So, admittedly, my series has lost a little bit of luster because, as we mentioned at the top of the podcast, one, it's hurting my pocketbook. I have money on the Guardians to win tonight, and they're not going to win. It doesn't look like they're going to win. They could always come back, but they are about to drop 3 of 4 to the Tigers. So this is not a team that's going to be coming in on a hot streak against a White Sox team that has sort of turned a corner. And that's what, to me, was going to be interesting about this series. Dylan Cease is, of course, still dominant. They're getting some hitting. You know, Cease is a legitimate Cy Young contender. You've got Justin Verlander, but the White Sox are playing better baseball over the last 10, 12 days. I thought this series was going to be 2 teams coming in that were really going to be jostling for wild card position. They're still in the wild card consideration, and they're still going to be fighting each other for position. But the Guardians are going to be potentially limping in, licking wounds after getting beat up by, of all teams, the Detroit Tigers. However, if there's anything you can get up for, it's facing the White Sox, who are in the wild card hunt with you. So I think Tito's going to get the team together here. We might see a competitive series. I think we've got a couple of decent pitching matchups. You know, obviously Cease is going to go in this series, and you know, Bieber's a guy who is always fun to watch for the Guardians. I'm having trouble building this up as much because the Guardians are kind of sliding backwards, and they have been over the last 2 weeks. I thought the Tiger series was going to be their opportunity to win a few games and take some momentum into this series, and I was 100% incorrect when I selected this series. Last night, they had split the first 2. When I selected it, I thought the Guardians were going to win last night and win tonight, get some momentum. Again, I'll eat my hat on that. I was wrong. But still going to be interesting to watch the series because there are wild card implications, you know, in the American League, as we've seen a couple of teams right now, like the Jays and the Orioles are playing right now. So we're starting to get close to where these games are mattering in playoff standings, and we can start talking about, hey, how does this affect, right? Is it a game up, a game down here and there, and you start to run out of games as we get closer to September. You mentioned the 9 games for the Yankees. Like 2 weeks ago, that was an insurmountable fucking lead.
Yeah.
This has changed a lot in the standings. And then the wild card here, you drop 2 of 3 to the White Sox here. If you're the Guardians, it starts to look a little dire. On the flip side of the coin, if you're the White Sox, you don't want to lose that momentum you've been gaining here over the last 10 days. So
you mentioned it. There's 6 weeks left in regular season.
Yeah.
6.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine that. How close are we to October baseball, though?
October baseball.
And
a little
now
depressing
November
when we might lose the
baseball.
regular season, but
Speaking of
November too.
baseball. They just released the was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
2 days ago, yeah.
2 days ago. Yeah, they just released the schedule for the playoffs and World Series and everything. So now you're starting to get November baseball again.
November
It's going to be
baseball.
tough.
I don't like it. I don't like.
What are your guys' thoughts long term? Do you think that they move the season up? Because I get the idea of playoff baseball, right? We want as many teams in as possible. We want as many playoff games as possible because of the money. Is it time to cut the regular season short?
Here's a weird concept, and I think it's fucking bullshit, okay? In all fucking sports when it comes to fucking playoffs. Too many fucking off days. Too many fucking off days. You don't have that in the regular season. So why start now in playoffs? Get rid of it.
Did you see the World Series schedule? They have a game off between game 1 and 2 in the same city, and then a game off, and then there's no off days like the rest of the series. So the weird schedule. It's so weird.
I don't like it one bit. Don't like it.
Well, because you think about like what's November in Boston? What's November in New York? What's November in Chicago, Minnesota, Cleveland? It's cold as fuck. And then even, Ty, you mentioned the Midwest with all the snow possibly in Iowa during the winter when they're trying to, do renovations. I assume you guys get snow much like we do in the Northeast because it's fairly similar climates. So you're looking at possibly snow on the ground for playoff baseball. October was cutting it close in a lot of ways. November's really, really playing with fire.
Well, here's my take. Don't cut the season short. 162 is great. Why do we need, and maybe we do, why do we need 30 spring training games at the an entire month of spring training? You take a look at the other sports. The NFL is taking a good hard look at cutting their preseason action. I think with training camps starting in February, your guys are already starting to get acclimated. There's no point to extend spring training for as long as they did. And we saw it with the albeit shortened spring training that they did this season with the lockout that had ensued and everything that had transpired. Yes, it was shaky at first because starting pitchers weren't going deep in distances, but I don't think the overall quality of the game dissipated that much because they missed 15 games of spring training. So if anything, start the season a little bit sooner, maybe third week of March, cut your spring training down by about 2 weeks, and then we're not playing November baseball because nothing would make me more happy than the Toronto Jays advancing to the World Series and having it be in November and having there be postponements to the World Series because there's 10 feet of snow on the ground in Toronto, Canada. Same story for St. Louis, Missouri. Out here in the Midwest, we get our snow more than our fair share of the rest of them. So, you run the serious risk of having to sled, not slide, into home in the World Series.
That's what I was going to ask, and I'm glad you broached that because do we move the season up 2 weeks and start in mid-March, or like you said, third week of March? There's got to be a way for us to manipulate how, when the season starts or how it plays out. November's not good. October baseball is playoff baseball. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear. Let's be honest. October baseball is playoff baseball.
Yep.
November. The exception to that is Mr. November, Derek Jeter, right? I know I've shit on him, but Mr. November, because of the tragedy, right? That postseason got pushed back a bit,
right?
And we got some November baseball, and that was an interesting kind of one-off niche sort of thing. I don't want November baseball to be a regular thing. It's October baseball. That's playoff baseball to me.
100.
All right. Let's move in. Let's talk a little State of the Union here. All right. So, Stove, in all fairness, I'm going to save yours for last. And I think it's pretty obvious why. I think we all have some strong feelings about your State of the Union, and I'm so glad that you went this route with your State of the Union. Ty, I'm going to start with you because we had another development in the city of Arlington, Texas today.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Young has been promoted to president of baseball operations. They are cleaning fucking house from manager in the dugout all the way up to management in the front office. Talk to me about the State of the Union of affairs down there with the Texas Rangers, a team who I picked to win the fucking division this year. I got to eat my hat again. Damn, I'm running out of hats here.
There he is. And it's one of the reasons that we highlight the Rangers in this particular fashion. Chris Woodward, as we know, Monday, third manager in baseball to get sacked for the season, as the general manager at the time called it dissatisfactory progress, quote unquote. Yeah, I'd say so. Gary, you mentioned it. There was optimism here with the Texas Rangers. They spent a shit ton of money to go get Corey Seager. They spent a load on probably at the time, the best second baseman in baseball a year ago, who has really failed to shine over in Texas. That's with Marcus Semien. They go get John Gray
in a hitter's ballpark.
Yeah.
Oof.
Money.
That's a bandbox down there.
They spent a lot of cash. Their farm system is probably in the top 5 in Major League Baseball in terms of what they have to offer as they move forward. And your record in one-run games, when it comes down to the manager to do his job, the close games down in the wire, you're 6-24 in one-run games. That record, we talked about awful records in baseball. This is the second worst single season winning percentage in one-run games since the fucking year 1900. It is 2022. No team has been worse than the Texas Rangers in one-run games. So Chris Woodward, adios, had high hopes for the guy. He did not, that their COVID-shortened season, everybody got a pass, right? Their season last year ended in disappointment. Their management said, hey, we're going to go out and spend some money, get the players that you need. We think we can be competitive in a otherwise, before Seattle surged, lackluster American League West. That's what we all kind of thought. We all had different opinions. Every single one of us took a different team in the American League West because it was a toss-up. Nobody really knew. And all indicators were certainly moving forward for the Texas Rangers. And then you get today's news that the president of baseball operations, who when he took the job was certainly young and chipper and is now having probably a few gray hairs after some misery over in Texas, John Daniels, fired today as president of baseball operations. It is a complete cleaning house from the top to the bottom. And this is, in my opinion, the way it should be done in Major League Baseball if you are going to go through and make changes from the administration standpoint. So they're cleaning house. They still have a bright future. As mentioned, their farm system is still intact. Nothing is really hurt there. They've got players that they can move if they need to move them in the January offseason window. Be hard telling where Seager ends up. Semien, John Gray, are those guys going to stick around long enough for the farm products to get back and get the Rangers back to sort of winning baseball? But this is an American League West team that has been oftentimes extremely disappointing in the product they put on the field, and it's been in these close games. It's been when the manager needs to come through where you got guys like Buck Showalter. We talk about him, a lot. He's winning a lot of those baseball games. You got Ollie Marmol with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's winning a lot of those games. They didn't have the right guy in place. The guy who put him there is also now gone. Tony Beasley, by the way, is in charge. And from everything that I've heard in Texas and in the post-game interviews, he's a player's coach. And the players love playing for him. And right now it's showing. They're building a little momentum. They get a home run off Semien, who had been playing extremely poorly. Their rookie, Bubba Thompson, had an RBI single the other day. They were able to knock off the Oakland Athletics, which I know isn't very hard. But any momentum is good momentum right now for Texas. They've got a 3-game winning streak for the first time in 2 months. And it was just a little bit of a changeover in administration. And I think that that's a breath of fresh air that Texas needs to finish this season. They're not going to win the AOS. They're not going to make the playoffs. But to get a breath of fresh air, to close out the season, to enter the offseason with a little momentum, and we could be talking a different tune in 2023 when it comes to the Texas Rangers. I thought, from the State of the Union perspective, these were needed moves, and then that needed move that I was going to talk about even got an added boost this morning when you look at them from the operational standpoint. So it'll be very interesting to see how the team structures moving forward with the new GM that's going to be coming into play, the new president of baseball operations, the new skipper. If they hire a new skipper right now, if they play winning baseball, close out the season of winning baseball, Tony Beasley could very well wear that hat again in 2023. And for his sake, he's been around the game a long time. He's been involved in the minor leagues. I love hearing stories like that. That was sort of a Mike Schultz story from a few years ago with the Cardinals. Just paid his dues and gets rewarded with a manager's job. It'll be interesting to see, but I think the future's still bright enough there in Texas to where if they get some guys in and change the culture, it's about a culture change in Texas. They need to start playing winning baseball. And I've got faith that the next administration can do that. So the future's looking bright for you, Texas Rangers fans.
Yeah, and a couple of things to, piggyback a little bit, emphasize a little bit. With the change from top to bottom, we see a lot of teams where, like, the GM gets, well, it wasn't my guy, or it wasn't this, or it wasn't that, so he gets another shot, and it doesn't change. Make that change wholesale, right? Change your manager, change your general manager, get a whole fresh look. We saw it work with the Phillies in terms of the coaching change, right? With Girardi, and I was not a fan of the move. And again, they're playing good baseball right now, right? But maybe that's what we're seeing with the Rangers. And just in their division, they're watching a team right now in the Seattle Mariners who finished last year strong and are playing good baseball this year and have a chance of making the playoffs. That's what the Rangers need to look at to potentially be. How do we make the best of a lost season? But you mentioned the 1-run ball games. If they won just half, right? They're 6-24. If they went 15-15, right now they're a game and a half out of. I'm sorry, not a game and a half. I got to bring it back up. Sorry, they are 2.5 games out of a wild card position. Yep. If they win just half of those games, those 1-run games, and you mentioned it, the manager, that's where they shine. Guys like Buck Showalter, guys like Joe Torre used to do with the Yankees. All that talent that they had, they still had to put it together late in tight ball games. So that's when the manager shines. That's when they earn their buck. They put the right people in the right positions to succeed. He's not doing it. He wasn't doing it, right? And of course, he's still not doing it because he doesn't have a fucking job. Right. If they win just half of those, though, and that's what you have to look at. Why is it that you make a change at manager? That's why. That's why. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the Baltimore Orioles, who are right now a game and a half out of a wild card spot. And I think I take that back. They won last night. They're a win better. They're still a game and a half. So I know the standings are a little outdated from last night. They're 61-55, not 60-55, but they are still game and a half out of a wild card spot. Who would have thought in March, in April, and maybe even in May that we'd be talking about the Baltimore Orioles possibly sneaking into a playoff spot? Not me. And I don't think anybody on this podcast would have thought that, because we all talked about at the beginning of the season, that's a 5-year plan in Baltimore. They've got so much young talent, great talent in the farm system. That's a 5-year plan. However, we severely underestimated that's a 5-month plan. When you look at it in March, we're in August, they're sniffing a playoff spot. And oh, by the way, they traded away Trey Mancini, and they're still playing winning baseball. They didn't give up, young guys to go try to win this year, and they're still winning baseball. The future is really, really, really bright for Baltimore, because Rutschman is one of the best defensive catchers in the league. He's not really swinging the stick like we know he can, but I think he's going to get there in terms of a guy that really is a linchpin in a lineup as a catcher. They've got so many young guys that are contributing, and that rotation is starting to pitch better. And that was the big thing we were concerned with this team, is who's the pitcher they're going to go get? Who's the guy they're going to go bring in? Because the farm system's a little depleted with arms, but they've got guys in the major leagues right now that are starting to look like the real deal. You look at what they're doing with their rotation, and Mr. Voth there is starting to look like he might be a fucking ace. And 2 months ago, we would never have thought that the Orioles had an ace on their roster. That was what we talked about them needing to go get, that and some bullpen help. But they might have a guy. And you add that with what they've got coming up, they've still got some guys down in that farm system that are going to come to the major leagues and be difference makers potentially. They've got, top 10, top 20, top 25 prospects still in that farm system. This Baltimore Orioles team, if they make the playoffs, they're going to be exciting to watch. If they don't make the playoffs and they just miss out, look the fuck out in 2023. Really look the fuck out in 2024, because those guys are just going to continue to mature. And Ty, you coined it perfectly. When they made the move to bring up Adley Rutschman, that was management saying, we are in this together, right? We're not playing fuck games. Rutschman was hurt to start the season, so in their defense, that's, obviously he's not going to get called up. But as soon as he was healthy and ready to go, made a few starts down in the minor leagues, they said, yep, come on up, bud. And I think that really did light a fire under this team, because they instantly, and it wasn't because Rutschman is lighting the world on fire with his bat, but they instantly started winning ball games there in Baltimore, and it has continued through August. And I do believe it's going to continue through September. We might not see them in the playoffs because the AL is pretty tough right now with the teams that are in front of them. But if I'm an Orioles fan, and I have a soft spot for the Orioles because Cal is my favorite player of all time, I'm feeling really, really, really good about the prospects here in Baltimore.
Here's my concern with Baltimore, okay? I love what they're doing, love what they've done so far up to this point. My concern with them is year 3, 4, and 5, okay? Want to know why? Because it's Baltimore. When was the last time they went out and spent some money? They haven't. Who'd they have before? Big name, Machado. Okay, they got rid of him. Last big name, Mancini. What'd they do? They traded him. Baltimore, to me, is the Oakland A's of the East. Okay? I don't see them sustaining what they're doing or what they could be potentially if they keep those core guys together and everything else. I think that it's just going to be one of those things where, you'll talk about them for 2-3 years. They have some good players, and then they trade them for younger prospects, and draft picks. Unfortunately, I see it.
So here's a counterpoint and a question, and this is a scaled question. What's your confidence level in looking back at the Mancini and the Machado moves as saying, especially the Machado move? Machado was the only star on that team.
Mm-hmm.
They paid Miguel Tejada and Chris Davis when they had a pretty decent core together. Brady Anderson, they had some guys there that they were willing to pay some money. Do you give them any benefit of the doubt to say that Manny Machado was kind of the lone bright spot on a bad roster, and that's why they were willing to move on from him? Or do you still kind of think we might see guys like Rutschman and Kierstad and some of these other guys out the door for younger prospects in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Go ahead, Todd.
Did I sway you at all?
No.
If you want me to answer, I don't think you let the ship sail on your number 1 draft pick and the most highly touted prospect that you've had in your organization for quite some time, a prospect that has generated so much fan support and put butts in the seats even when Baltimore was expected to be very, very bad in the early part of the season. And Adley Rutschman provided that. Like I mentioned, he was sort of the message, if you will. His presence alone in that clubhouse was a message from management that we're not going to continue to be the Baltimore of old, that we are turning a new leaf, and that our rebuild has not only started, but now we can see some actual substance. We can see some actual value here into this rebuild. Baltimore, to me, right now as it stands. I don't say that they're the Oakland A's by any stretch. I look at Baltimore as maybe a team that was trying to go under the radar, but because they're Baltimore and they've been so historically bad for so long, you can't not fly under the radar when you're a team that's 1.5 games out of a wild card spot.
Right.
I think Baltimore took a page out of the Tampa playbook. They're not flashy when they do things. They're not a flashy baseball team. They don't have the huge stars. They have some core pieces, but Baltimore to me is arms away and literally an arm's length away. Go get a damn arm. I see this offseason for Baltimore, and I'm going to say it. Veteran pitchers that are on the decline, that are on their way down, that some of these other franchises no longer want. Guys that know what to do when they get
Kershaw. Sorry.
that can give you 5-6 quality innings, that can get you quality starts, that can go into the bullpen and work 3 outs without giving up 2 runs. That's what Baltimore. They're 2 or 3 guys away, and it's in the pitching rotation right now. Like I said, I think their offense is solid enough to really remind me of the early 70s Baltimore teams that were, hey, let's go put 2 guys on, hit a 3-run shot, and we're going to beat you 3-0. Baltimore can get those arms and use that page in the playbook and be a contender next year. I still say Baltimore is not there yet. I don't think they make the playoffs yet because I think that this is a super competitive division. If they were in the AL Central, I might have a different opinion on that. But they're not. They're in the American League East, and it's really good. And they're locked in a really good wild card race. Baltimore is probably a year away, but if they can keep the core together, which I think they will for the next year, make a World Series run, and then all of a sudden, not a World Series run, a postseason run, but all of a sudden the wheels start to turn, momentum starts to turn, and then you're playing winning baseball, and you don't have to be one of those sellers. You don't have to be where Baltimore was historically 5, 6, 7 years ago because you built that foundation.
Yeah, for sure. I just pulled it up, free agent list for 2023, starting pitchers. And there's a bunch of club option and player options here. So not all of these names are going to be available. Some of them are going to pick up their own options. Some teams are going to pick up options. But you've got names like DeGrom, Verlander, Rodon, Charlie Morton, Adam Wainwright if he decides he's going to continue to play, Nathan Eovaldi, Clayton Kershaw, right? Stove, you just mentioned Kershaw. A guy like Aaron Nola, Sean Manaea should be a free agent. I don't know that the Yankees are going to, the Padres are going to, continue to move with him. Chris Bassett looks like he could potentially hit free agency. Mike Clevenger, Corey Kluber, right? There's some names that have the possibility of being free agents at the end of the season. And you look at Baltimore and you say, like you mentioned, Ty, you're an arm's length away. Go get a guy. Go get a guy that can be your number. Maybe if it's a number 2, right? If Austin Voth continues to be a number 1 pitcher the rest of this season, and you're adding a guy that can be 1A, 1B, or 1 or 2, that changes the calculus for you as Baltimore. That changes your entire calculus because you've got 2 studs at the top. Look what we've been talking about with the Mets. They've got a 1A and a 1B. Who the fuck wants to face that in a playoff series in October? I don't. I know for a fact that not many managers want to face Max Scherzer in game 1 and DeGrom in game 2 or flip-flop them. It don't matter which one you roll the ball out to in game 1 or 2. You've got a horse. And if Baltimore can go get that horse, then I think that makes a huge difference for them. And there's some big names. And, of course, as I mentioned, they're not all going to be free agents. But if it's arms, invest in arms. That's the number 1. It's like drafting quarterbacks in the NFL. You're going to miss on probably 90% of them. And many of them are going to become lifelong 5th starters in the rotation, right? Those are the ones that if they hit free agency, you've got to go get them because they don't come along very often. Proven commodities, that can toe the bump every 5th day and give you a quality start. They don't come available very often, but they make such a huge difference for a ball club. And if that's what Baltimore is looking for, you got to go get it. You got to go invest. Stove, I know you don't have a lot of confidence in them actually investing, but I think they're so close. I think they're so close that they just a little bit of investment, they could go a long way here. All right. Let's close the loop here on some really interesting developments over the last 2 weeks. So, little bit of backstory. We've been talking a lot about Tatis. I highlighted the Padres-Dodgers series because it was a matchup of two good teams, but also because, to me, that was the start of Fernando Tatis' watch. We were on alert that Tatis was making rehab starts, and we expected him in the major leagues 2 to 4 weeks, right? Usually when you start making those rehab starts, you look at a timeline like that. We're getting close to the 4-week mark, and we have breaking news. Fernando Tatis has failed a drug test treating ringworm, and his father has come out and said it's from a haircut. I'm going to make a statement here, and I make this statement on our Backyard Blitz show often when football players fail PED tests. I've made the statement before in general when baseball players fail the PED test. You're a fucking professional athlete. If you are putting shit in your body, and you're not lying to us, right? You don't know what was in it. If you're putting shit in your body that you don't know every goddamned molecule of that, then you are the most reckless and irresponsible and untrustworthy fucking person. And I don't want you on my team. I'm going to put it out there right now. I don't want you on my fucking team. So, Stove, give me the State of the Union right now for Fernando Tatis Jr.
Well, Gary, Ty, you done fucked up, bruh. You done fucked up. Hair product because of a bad haircut. Treating ringworm. Okay, little backstory. Little backstory timeline here. Let's go back. Okay, why are you injured in the first place? Oh, motorcycle accident, reckless, danger, professional athlete, 12-year contract. Couldn't go to a team doctor because of the lockout. Okay, I get that. Okay, I get that. Maybe should have gotten it looked at though somewhere else, or maybe contacted MLB, the commissioner via your agent. Be like, look, had an accident, needs to see his team doctor, and as a commissioner and one of the young and upcoming stars, you would probably make an exception. Yeah, go see a fucking team doctor. Get it looked at. Let's get this handled earlier rather than later because we don't know when we're going to be back to playing baseball. So you have that, okay? So, one, you're already playing recklessly with yourself. You get injured. You finally see a team doctor once everything is good to go with the CBA and everything else with the MLB. Oh, shit. Needs surgery. Out however long. Okay, we said after the All-Star break. Well, it's after the All-Star break. But before the All-Star break happened, he was out seen in the outfield playing soccer. As someone that is rehabbing and everything else, I would not be out playing soccer. It doesn't matter if it's on the baseball field or whatnot. That's stay in your lane right there. And I hate using that term because that term has been used to so many athletes from other people out there.
It's a diminutive term.
Yes. Know what you are doing.
Yeah.
Okay? People are looking at you in a different light already because of what happened. But now they see you out there playing around while you're on the injured list and supposed to be rehabbing. Okay. So there's strike number 2. Okay. Number 3, bad haircut, treating for ringworm with a hairspray. Okay. Dad comes out and says, this is nonsense, blah, 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 fighting for his son here, as a dad should. Okay. I would do that for my son as well. Okay. But here are the facts. He put a banned substance into or on his body that had a reaction and caused the failed PED test. That's strike 3. But here, let's dive into that strike 3, okay? As an athlete, like you said, Gary, you must know what you put in or on your body at any given time. As an athlete, you are open and you have access to multiple resources, more than all of us combined, as to find out what goes into your body. You had that opportunity here. Okay? You did not do that. You went ahead recklessly, again, did something to jeopardize your playing career and your future and your image in the game of baseball and outside of baseball. Also, if it is for a medical reason in MLB and the CBA, you can ask permission for an exemption.
Exceptions
for this. All you had to do was ask. You didn't do that. You just did it. You guys, I think you mentioned it in our group chat about trusting baseball players, and if this was the last younger player that we could trust. All that's gone out the door. All of it's gone out the window. And the whole thing is just fishy to me, with the differing reports of ringworm and hair product and testosterone, cholesterol, whatever. Okay, it's an anabolic steroid. Okay, that you put into your body. Okay, you done fucked up. You didn't ask permission. That's strike 3. As a owner or player within the San Diego Padres organization, I'm fucking livid. I am fucking livid with you. And if I'm Manny Machado, if I'm whoever, as a veteran player in that clubhouse, I'm having a fucking serious sit-down conversation with him and try and get his ass lined up. Because if this is the kind of behavior...
Careful with that term, because he was getting lined up when he got the ringworm. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to go full dad joke there.
Absolutely. But as the face of the franchise, you and Machado are the face of that San Diego Padres organization. Start fucking acting like it. I don't trust him. Won't trust him until he proves me otherwise. And honestly, I don't think this is going to be the first time that this happens with him. And I will say it right now. He is out of San Diego after year 4 of his contract.
Ooh. They're going to get tired of it, huh?
Bold.
That's tough. Listen, I can tell you as someone who wrestled for still just about half my life, you're not treating fucking ringworm with fucking hairspray, bud.
No.
You're not treating ringworm. You're treating ringworm with antifungal cream. You're not treating it with anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
You can call it all you want, but I'm telling you right now, you're a fucking liar. You were trying to get back from an injury.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this with so many guys that are coming back off of rehab. You're trying to get back, and you took something that you thought you might be able to get away with, and a random test popped up, and oh shit, I better start thinking of a fucking excuse.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a haircut recently. Like, we mentioned the professional athlete thing. You're a professional athlete. Where the fuck are you getting a haircut that you're getting ringworm?
Yeah.
Seriously. You ain't going to fucking downtown, whatever city you want to talk about, where the guy's dunking the fucking, straight razor in the fucking water for every single fucking person. You're not getting your haircut at some shady establishment where you're gonna catch shit like that. It's a load of bullshit. And to be honest, I get that his dad's coming to his defense, but like, it's not a good look, but it's not a good look.
No.
This is bad. Own it. He owned it to a certain. I equate this to what I'd like to call backhanded apologies, and this is sort of a backhanded owning up to it. Yeah, I did this, but here's this ridiculous fucking reason why it's somebody else's fault. Like, just fucking own it. You made a mistake. You'll come back better. I apologize to the city of San Diego. I apologize to the Padres organization. I apologize to my teammates. I apologize to the fans. 80 games. We'll see you next year. I just don't get this with athletes. And like, I lost a lot of respect for a lot of guys like Ryan Braun, who put his reputation on the line, and Aaron Rodgers, who put his reputation on the line for Ryan Braun. Richard Sherman failed a drug test and then got the fucking drug test delivery person fired over some nonsense shit. You fucked up, bud. You fucked up. Eat it.
Yep.
Eat it. I hate this with athletes when they do this shit. You're not fooling anybody.
Nope.
You're not fooling anybody. We're all adults around here.
Despite all of this bullshit that has happened, and it's not just face of the franchise. Fernando Tatis Jr. was the face of baseball.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Arguably the face of the game, and it hurts me as a baseball fan because all season long we've been talking about we've got the lockout behind us, and we can get the fan support, and we can bring new fans into the game. And here's these kids doing the flashy stuff, the bat flips and the theatrics, and they're bringing new fans into the game. The same fans that left in 1994 after the strike, the same fans that left in 1998 after the steroid debacle, and they're seeing baseball walk the exact same path with literally the face of the game. Is doing the exact same shit. That's why they left in the first place. So that pisses me off. You know what I am a little bit relieved over, however, is the way Major League Baseball handled it. Because in previous regimes, your face of the franchise fucks up and you are sweeping under the rug. Let's get our best player back in the game as soon as possible. And this goes away in a previous regime in baseball. With all of that knowledge, one of their highest paid stars, the guy that's on the cover and on every TV commercial that has to do with baseball, period, fails a drug test, and they slap it hard. Yeah. It was not a minor. Now, I realize that it's all laid out and how you fail these performance-enhancing drugs is all laid out in the contract, but they didn't listen to the bullshit right away. They slapped on the suspension that they did. So I'm relieved in that aspect, but I'm pissed off not only from the Padres' perspective and just from being a guy that played a part of teams, that knows how important that team chemistry is and knows that you need to be accountable for the other guys wearing that jersey. You need to be accountable to the franchise that just went out and spent buku bucks to win a World Series with the idea that you were going to be a part of that roster. You failed the ownership, you failed your teammates, but you failed the fucking fans of not just your organization, not just the kids that wear your back of your name on their back of their jersey. You let down baseball fans that were trying to get excited about the game again, that thought there was a breath of fresh air, that these new kids were doing something fun, that this wasn't your father's baseball. Well, guess what? Cheaters are going to cheat. It's always going to be there. You're always going to try to find a way around it. You can call it however you want. You can say injury rehab, but you have so many fucking resources available to you to not make that mistake, and you don't utilize any of them. You don't ask. You don't think. It was reckless. It follows a history of reckless behavior from Fernando Tatis Jr. I loved him when he was breaking the unwritten rules, when he was swinging away on 3-0 counts. I'm hating him that he's just reckless with the game, with where it was at and where it was going. To throw that all away because your best player tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs is something that I can't excuse, and I give players a lot of benefit of the doubt on this show, and I give players a lot of benefit of the doubt in my own life. I can't excuse this. This is a bad look. It's a black eye, and it's going to be a black eye. And when he comes back next year, I fully expect more black eyes because I fully expect there's going to be a lot of starting pitchers that are going to go high and tight with Fernando Tatis Jr. right away for doing what he did. So
I would.
Yeah.
I would. and we've all kind of mentioned the whole, like, you're a professional, but, like, how about let's be a fucking adult in this situation, right? Let's not be reckless with our livelihood. Let's not be reckless with our career. Let's not be reckless with the people that look up to us. And you mentioned the fans, the kids that are huge fans of Tatis because of the flash. That's kind of the thing that gets the spotlight now. Yeah. It's so disappointing to think that a guy with all of the tools that baseball requires, he hits for power, he hits for average, he's a great fielder, big arm, steals bases, but he's just careless, and he's not going to be on the field. You can't even use those tools for 80 games because you were a fucking reckless, immature asshole. All right, let's shift gears. Let's get to closing statements here. Let's bring the energy up a little bit. Stove, what you got for me as we close the doors here?
Well, there's a series we didn't talk about.
Uh-oh.
But I did mention it. They're an up and rising team ever since that Field of Dreams game, baby. Cardinals better watch out next week.
Look out, St. Louis.
They're coming to town, and they're riding a hot streak, baby. You want to talk about playoff implications, Ty? Hey, there it is, baby. There it is. You better win them. You better win them when you can, because if not, you're going to be sitting second place or at home on the pine with my Cubbies, baby.
And what do the St. Louis Cardinals do best than overlook a team that is 15 and a half games below them? It's pretty easy to do when you're up high atop of the ladder and you have to look down and be like, where the hell is Chicago? We don't have to worry about Chicago. They're so far behind us. We do that really well because you just got done sweeping the New York Yankees. You turn around and you got skunked by Colorado in that next game. Cardinals have turned things around since, but they do that pretty well. I still think they're adjusting to life without their heart and soul with Harrison Bader. But here's the deal: that you get the Cards and the Cubs, and it's going to be towards the end, as you mentioned, 6 weeks left of the regular season. I don't know off the top of my head how many more series we get with Cards Cubs, but it's Cards Cubs. It's the rivalry of the Central. It's one of the best in all of baseball, and you get an opportunity to see the fountain of youth, as we talked about with Nick Madrigal, mixed in with the veterans who are still kicking ass for St. Louis. And I'm talking about my man, number 5, Albert Pujols, who went deep not once, but twice over the weekend to beat the Milwaukee Brewers. And his second home run, I have not heard the roar of Busch Stadium like that since the St. Louis Cardinals went on their World Series run back in 2011 and Freeze hit the go-ahead. We will see you tomorrow night. The infamous call from Buck. There's the spirit of St. Louis. We talk about it in the Midwest. It's fully alive and well. Cardinals are playing great baseball, and it has been these guys that have been kicking ass.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to close up with there's life in Cleveland. They're winning right now, bud.
Who cares?
What?
They fucking rallied. They're up fucking 8-4.
Let's go! I didn't lose my bet. Let's go!
Listen, there's nothing more totally baseball than placing wagers on a baseball game. You may break cardinal rules, you may commit sins, but Cleveland just came back and won, and isn't that just so Major League Baseball? We're going to close on that.
Bye.
We are out.